Hello, founders. Welcome to Startups.com. We are live. We got a really great show. We come to you every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Tuesdays, it's one of my favorite days, Will. Pitch decks. We're going to go through pitch decks. We're going to talk about it. We've got a real great one lined up. It's called Urban Mount. We're going to talk, and spoiler alert, this pitch deck's already getting VC meetings, lots of great compliments. It's stuff we like to see. We are going to talk about this pitch deck, go through what is so great about it, but at the same time, we're going to talk about how do we push that just to the next level. Super excited about doing that. And I have joining me, as always, founder and CEO of Startups.com, 9 startups, 5 exits, lots of great experience. Will, I'm just going to share something exciting that today, Startups.com, we are bringing you everything that we got going on here for our show. And what's super exciting is we've got this new feature going on. I'm just going to pull it up here. And it's all about member matching. So if you go up to Startups.com and you head on over to members and you go to member matching, we can type something in and Will give us a little bit of an idea of what this feature is all about. And I'm just going to type in something about give me an idea. What could we be looking for?
Yeah, so just some background as to what you can look for. You can literally look for anything. We have hundreds of thousands of members already loaded into the system. And Ed, let's go for, I'm looking for a mobile developer that loves dogs.
That loves dogs. Okay, great.
I mean, okay, so just before you hit enter, this is a ridiculous prompt, right? But we could put, I'm looking for mobile developers, I'm looking for advisors, investors, co-founders, like you name it. I'm putting in someone that loves dogs just to show you the AI finds everything. Ed, this AI is bananas, right? And so, Ed, you're going to key in a couple of specific skills depending on what you're looking for.
Yeah.
But the reason I'm so excited about this is that, like I said, we have hundreds and hundreds of thousands of founders and startup folks on our platform that are trying to get connected to other startups looking to do stuff. So Ed, when people come to us and they're like, yeah, I need to find an advisor, I need to find a developer, I need to find a marketing person, I need to find legal help, etc. We've been manually making these matches for how long, Ed? Like years?
As long as I can remember, Will.
We found 521 people who have both mobile development and like dogs, apparently. It's amazing. So here's what happens. We take every single person on the platform and we stack rank all of them with a weighted matching score. And we show you how it's done with a weighted matching score of every single person on the platform. And then the AI will say specifically, what is it about that person that makes it a great fit? And then what's awesome is, unlike LinkedIn and stuff, which makes it so hard to meet people, Ed, let's go to send a message.
Yeah, let's go to the top one here so we can see it's the best match. And then I'm going to send a message.
This instantly opens a Slack style chat with that member. Now that member will get notification like you would at any social network and as to who you are and kind of some background and why you want to chat. We have a ton of admin tools and basic anti-spam tools to make sure this doesn't get abused, but it's awesome. And most founders, as you know, Ed, they don't really have a network of people. They'll like go to LinkedIn and they'll start doing some searches, but those aren't necessarily people that are startup people. Our people are all startup people. Like if it's a mobile app developer, they probably understand what it means to get paid with equity. If it's an advisor, they advise startups. If it's a lawyer, they advise startups. Like every person you're going to find is contextual to running a startup company.
And what I love about it is these days, we can connect with anybody around the world. We have founders literally from every continent who are joining us on a regular basis. And we just want to interconnect everyone because, well, most people come to Startups.com because they are confused. They don't know who to talk to. They don't know what to trust. And then also they feel isolated and they're lonely because they're probably in an area that doesn't have, they're not in the Bay Area or they're not in Silicon Alley in New York. So we want to try and help everyone. I think it's a brilliant tool.
Yeah. And honestly, I've been wanting to build this tool for like 8 years. So when we launched it recently, we did our team meeting and went through all the requirements and everything and kind of like, what the output was. And when it was over, I like jumped out of my seat, and shouted at the top of my lungs, F yes, because I was that excited about it. And I can't remember the last time I built anything, when it comes to work web stuff that I was that pumped about. So if it sounds like I'm infomercialing this thing, I kind of am because I can't wait for people to use it. And I'm sure you're in the same boat. This saves you a ton of time.
It does for sure. I've referred so many founders since this came out, but what's great is that it's going to be dynamic and we're going to be adding every time someone signs up, fills out their profile, we're going to be adding it to you and sending you those matches. It's going to be great. We're going to be doing pitch decks today, Tuesdays, pitch decks, Wednesdays, Revenue Accelerator, traction hacking. Thursdays, we go through some really interesting topics. We do an AMA. We ask a whole bunch of questions. We answer your questions. We love to hear them. If you're out there and you're part of the Startups.com community, by the way, thank you very much. Make sure you let us know if you want a pitch deck review. Just contact us. We'll get you on the list. And if you're out there on the interwebs, you're on YouTube, do the YouTube thing. Like, comment, subscribe, share this with another founder. We really appreciate it. But also leave a comment and tell us that you want your pitch deck review, because we want to make this available to everyone and help the ecosystem at large. We appreciate you founders out there that have the courage to send us the deck and say, hey, I want some feedback, and we're here for you. Yes.
Not easy to do.
Well, before we jump into this pitch deck, I am going to ask you a little bit of a leading question.
Uh-oh, here we go.
When you look at pitch decks right away, what are you looking for? Just run through it just quickly, top of mind. When you sit there and go, man, I really hope this pitch deck looks like this. What are the factors?
First thing I look for, and this is going to sound odd, a lot of people wouldn't think about this. I look for how few words there are, how few words. And here's why, and Ed, as soon as I see paragraphs of content, I'm like, nobody professional has reviewed this pitch deck, right? Now, I don't blame the founder for doing that. Why would you know? But a really good pitch deck has so few words. And it's not a really good pitch deck because it has so few words. It has so few words because the founder spent so much time refining the message that they were able to build a good pitch deck. So when I see a single sentence that tells me everything I want to know, I'm well aware, because in a lot of cases I helped write that, I'm well aware of how much work it took to get to that sentence.
It falls under the category for me, well, how quick can I get through this pitch deck and understand what's going on?
That's all I want to know.
If it's brief, I appreciate it. But if it's brief and I understand what's going on, then I'm so much more excited about the pitch deck.
That's the thing. And so brevity is a sign of professionalism when it comes to a pitch deck. The second thing that I know is, just because I'm a creative and this is stuff I care about, is the quality of the visual layout. Now, I'll be honest, no one has ever gotten funding because they had sweeter images, right?
Sure.
Like it's icing on the cake. It's not the cake, right? However, this goes with the same thing. Companies that tend to be buttoned up at a lot of different levels, right? Like, there are some websites out there where the website looks like garbage, but it's a great company. Google would be the top of my list, right? Google has the most disgusting website design I've ever seen in my entire life, and yet they seem to do okay, right?
Yeah,
they seem to do okay.
They're doing okay.
Yeah, and so, again, one doesn't necessitate the other, but when you see a really well-packaged deck, right, it's usually because the founder behind it is pretty well packaged. Like, those things tend to go together. Ed, how about you? When you first look at the deck, what comes to mind?
You know, I look for the conventions. I've seen so many of these decks, and I look for straightforward problem, solution, market. Those are the first three slides that I look for. And a lot of founders want to buck that trend, but there's a reason, because it kind of flows from what's known as the Sequoia method. And it's just the way, because Sequoia's the biggest game in town. It's kind of the house that Sequoia built in many ways. I just track on that and I say, yeah, Sequoia made it easier for the rest of us. That's the pattern that I'm looking for. So I'm just going to be very transparent. I pattern match as soon as I open a pitch deck.
Yeah, I do too. By the time I see them, what I look for is, are they following our method? Now, that's not to say that they have to follow our method. I just know that if they do, it's going to be a good deck. Like 9 times out of 10. And again, this has nothing to do with it being our method. It just shows some like rigor and discipline for how it was presented, right? It tends to make sense.
You are in luck, Will. Well, basically because of your doing. We've got a great pitch deck. And everyone, we're just putting it out there. Again, spoiler alert. This founder said, I showed a VC this deck, and they asked me, who made this for you? And the founder said, I did, based on the advice that he was getting here at Startups.com. And Will, you and I separately have commented about this pitch deck as we've helped the founder work it through. And this is Urban Mount, and it's super exciting. And so we're going to walk through all the good stuff and then try and push this a little further. Let's look at the cover page right away. Urban Mount, the service layer for online retail. And again, we're not just going to give it its flowers. We definitely want to give it the same critique that we would do in earnest, as we always want to do with every pitch deck. What do you think about this cover slide? First impression.
I don't like the term service layer. I get it. Here's why I say that. And I'm not just trying to be critical. Again, I love this deck and I love this business. So this isn't me looking for a problem. But service layer only means something to someone who already understands what the product is.
Yes.
Right? Now that I know what the product is, of course it's the service layer for online retail. But at this slide, I don't know what the product is. So a service layer won't make any sense to me.
For me, Will, I always tell founders, you'd rather be clear and concise than clever.
Yep.
And I can definitely say, because I have inside knowledge of this startup, I think this cover slide is very clever. And it's one of those things where after you get through the deck, you're like, oh, that cover slide was clever. But now is not the time to try and get clever on the cover.
Yep. And again, it's professional, it's well done. However, I like to be very matter of fact. I like my cover slide to say this is exactly what we do. Right? We provide installation services for online retailers, right?
Yep.
And look, and that might not be comprehensive. There might be other things that we do, et cetera. But the reason I do that is because I know the only slide that will absolutely get seen by every investor is the cover slide. And time again, Ed, you know how many times you passed this around when you were GP at a firm?
Oh, yeah. All the time. It doesn't get to the next level without doing it.
Correct. Right. And so this isn't me harping or Ed harping on the cover slide trying to make a mountain out of a molehill. We're saying it's actually a little bit more important than you'd think because it's like the one thing that will get seen, even if the rest of your stuff it's like the sign outside your restaurant before anybody goes into your restaurant. Like it matters.
Right. So use this space to tell the investor what you do, just straightforward. Yep. And Will, taking a page from your experience in advertising, I appreciate, like, again, this is kind of like an inside move and it's clever, but right in the background, if you had, like products, like home decor, like all this stuff, because that's what this is about, it would just add so much more to this cover slide.
Me being creative director here, but if I pulled that phone down and I just showed the TV being sold and had, ad installation, those little visual cues add up so fast. Now, part of the challenge too, this is with every founder, is it's really hard to see this kind of stuff when you're so close to it. But when you see it for the first time or you put it in front of strangers, the strangers go, if we were to stop and query, we got a ton of great founders right now in the audience, but if we were to query every founder before they knew what this was and say, what is it? My guess is you'd get somewhat similar, like in the ballpark, but you wouldn't get exact. And that always concerns me a little bit.
Right. Getting close is only good in horseshoes and hand grenades, Will.
Been a long time.
For investors. Even something, and you'll see, like, even something where if you had a person installing someone's TV with a big smile, like just the little things that you can do, and that's fine. We're here. Again, this cover is it's not detrimental, not going to kill you, but at the same time, always ways to improve it. All right. So the problem, over 100 billion in installable home goods are sold each year in the US, yet most retailers can't offer installation or assembly at checkout due to the high cost and complexity of managing fulfillment. We've got wall decor, furniture, wallpaper, etc. down there. What do you think?
I love it. Here's what I love about it. I heard $100 billion. Okay. What I would have likely done, considering this is a fairly dense sentence, and I'm glad that it's one sentence, folks take note. It only needed to be one sentence. It's a fairly dense sentence. What I would have done, again, this is the designer in me, I would have taken a few keywords, Ed, and I would have bolded them. I love that technique in pitch decks because it really helps me understand emphasis. In this case, I would have bolded the words installable home goods, installation, and high cost and complexity.
Right. Yeah, it's just that little flair and that technique. And overall, strong problem statement because, one, we know the size and sort of severity of the problem in that $100 billion in installable home goods. But let's push it just a little bit. Like this is fine. We already got VC feedback. They understand what's going on, which is important. But let's talk about a few things that I'm missing for me, which is our typical MO. I wonder how many retailers can't sell, like who's missing out type thing. And maybe it's just a thing because I have inside information. I'm curious what you think. Well, I'm still getting hung up because we're not clarifying that this is online retailers, because I keep thinking it's going to be checkout like at an actual bricks and mortar store, unless that's what we're going to be adding, but I'm pretty sure we're not. So I get hung up on those two things, Will.
Would it have helped you out if it said most online retailers can't offer installation? It's a little wordy, but
that would have taken a better step forward. Or like online, anything like online retailers except IKEA, right? Because I know that's the competition, can't offer installation. Like, just give me a little bit more in terms of actual how many users or customers I could have out there.
You bet. Really, what we always want to know, and I think this does a fairly good job of this, what we always want to know is how much money is on the table. Now, a bit of a disconnect here is 100 billion installable home goods tells me nothing about how much money is on the table for installation.
Exactly.
Those are two vastly different markets. I might look at something like consumers spend $30 billion per year on installation, but can't buy it through the retailer. I don't hate this version, so I don't know that I want to change it. I just want to make a point to the folks watching or listening that we really want to try to focus on the part of the market, the problem part, that's our market.
Yes.
So $100 billion isn't our market. We can't make money on the $100 billion. We make money on top of that with installation.
And I'm going to double click on that, Will, because that was going to be my next point. I think we could have spiced it up. If you extrapolate it somehow and you said the retailers are missing out on $10 billion of extra income, because we know that people spend $10 billion on TaskRabbit or some other, outlet. So these are just things you can do to layer on top and augment what is already a strong one sentence problem slide.
Let me build on that. Online retailers lose $10 billion per year because they can't offer installation or assembly at checkout, blah, blah, blah.
Exactly.
Something like that. Okay, it's a little tighter as a sentence too.
Yeah.
You know what's odd, Ed? What I don't see here is a TV. Now,
Exactly.
I understand that last more it looks like a camera, but am I missing something?
No, you're not. And this is where you kind of run into a little bit of a trap when you start using these bullet points and you start thinking, and then you kind of let investors' mind go there. I would have put like online retail brands that I would have shopped from, or I would have done something a little more to kind of get us into the area versus put these bullet points. And that's, to me, that's what always sticks and makes me feel a little nervous when you got bullet points.
Well, in this case, Ed, I like knowing what the products are, because I think it would be wordy to try to like fit those into the problem statement. I'm saying, like, the first thing that comes to mind is TV. And maybe if we talk to the founder and they're like, actually somebody else does TVs. We don't do a lot of TVs. And so that's why it's not here. There could be a perfectly good reason for it. My first thought, though, was, wouldn't TVs be the first thing? Not a big deal.
I would validate. I know a founder who only focused on installations of televisions and entertainment systems. So that's a big market. For me, again, we're only just pushing it. Having, let's say, a picture of a room and having all these like little handymen or something like that, and highlight the TV, highlight the wall mount, highlight this, that, the floating shelves, would it just, again, landed it for me just a bit more to augment what is already a strong opening sentence.
You bet. Hey, Ed, why is there navigation in the top right?
That I still question every time I see it.
I've never seen that.
I think it's because people are using these fancy sort of Canva type things where you can choose to put the navigation up at the top and then it gets exported as a PDF.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I kind of figured there'd be a reason. I just commented because I'd never seen it.
Yeah. Okay, so that's what happens there. All right, so moving along. Solution. Urban Mount lets any retailer offer one-click installation or assembly at checkout with no overhead. We handle fulfillment. The retailer keeps a percentage.
Okay, that feels tight, man. Now we've got a screenshot here. One of the things I'm going to say, because I know a lot of folks want to use screenshots. Screenshots are complex. Screenshots are good if you have your audience's full attention. I was just building a pitch deck 2 hours ago, Ed, and I was building it for the middle school class that I teach at my kids' school. And I was building their sample deck so they can use that as an example.
Sure.
And the sample deck was using Duolingo. And as I was building the deck, I was looking at a bunch of like screenshots of Duolingo. And I kept thinking to myself as I was looking at these screenshots, that's too hard to read. Like, I can't just look at that and know exactly what it is. Screenshots aren't very scannable. And if you really want to piss people off, use 3. They're like so hard to make sense of. Now, I'm not saying I hate a screenshot. Sure. I'm saying as a visual element, they tend to be wonky. A lot of times what we'll do at Startups.com when we're doing landing pages and stuff like that, like collateral screenshots, we'll make a fake screenshot, meaning it's not an actual screenshot. We'll clean up all the junk so that all you see is just the part that's meaningful.
Yeah, well, I'm going to highlight that because I have seen that. What happens is that people often will kind of clean all that up and do something where they will like literally like say highlight, let's say, or, this part is the checkout thing, right? And they will put an arrow there. And they'll like sort of gray everything else out and then brighten that up. So it's the same thing. Well, you say something that I like to repeat. I've started to adopt it. It's great when it works. It's just it rarely works.
The other side of it too is when a lot of people tell us how well their decks have performed, they're talking about when they present them. Okay, let's pause on that for a second, because I think there's a really big concern, let's say, that I want folks to have. I think it's reasonable.
Sure.
You've got 2 scenarios where your deck gets presented. Scenario 1, which 99% of people will see first, is you send the deck out through email. Every investor will ask you to send it out through email, and they review the deck without you there. Let's say like 10% of the time, a lot less than you'd hope, you'll be in for the pitch and you'll be presenting it in person. Here's the thing. Your deck can actually kind of be a piece of shit when you're presenting it in person.
Yeah.
And you can get by in the pitch, right? Because honestly, the in-person pitch is a little bit less about the deck and more about you, because you're there to fill in all the gaps.
Absolutely. With your comedic timing, your charm, your charisma, like you bring everything to the table, you can compensate.
You bet. And you could actually, I would also argue that when you're presenting, have less deck. Have less, stuff to present, because the last thing you want people doing is reading while you're presenting. That's always, one of my cardinal things.
Totally true. I strip out all the narrative. I strip
Right.
out and I just have like big numbers and figures and sometimes even just a picture right
Yep.
there for a live presentation. We talk about that all the time. Let's get back to the strength here, the solution. One other critique, everyone, your the solution that should not be the largest font and take up the most eye space or attention. So you want to put that up, top small right there. Getting back to this, well, and I question again the online retailer. I don't know if this is an actual choice. I'd love to learn from the founder right there. But this sentence, I like it because one, what we're always looking for. One, it's a sentence, like it's really tight. Second, it actually addresses the problem. Like you're going backwards and you're addressing the scope of the problem. And I know exactly what it is. It's one-click installation. Because a lot of times, Will, I say this because actually I'm thinking about some of your pitch decks. All of you in the audience right now, appreciate you being here. But Will, sometimes founders get right into the benefits. Like we make the world a better place and we make our customers happy. And you're sitting there going, I don't even know if this is like an app, if it's a decentralized autonomous organization, is it crypto, is it an AI agent? It just gets right into, hey, we make this, everything is just going to be awesome if you invest in us. And I like the fact that I just clearly know that online retailers or retailers couldn't make the money. And now we can make the money by offering one click at a checkout. I like it.
Hey, Ed, in the problem, I can't remember what reference did we make to the retailers making money. Sold each year, most retailers can't offer installation or assembly at checkout due to the high cost and complexity. Now, we don't really hat tip to the fact that we're trying to increase retail margins, which is a huge issue. I'm okay with not jamming that into the problem statement because I don't think we have to explain to any audience that retailers need more margin.
But let me add something, Will, by that little suggestion you did saying retailers lose out on 10 billion, that is the perfect setup for retailers to keep a percentage, right?
Right.
The two connect. So again, that's how we massage it through. And we look at this. Yeah, I've got a comment here. If if I ever raise money, it will be because I made a great pitch video, your story without gaps to fill, and what you don't say designed in the keynote, people will be disappointed to see it live. So that's interesting. So I know this founder's got lots of practice pitching live and the difference. And I think that's such a valid point, Will, in talking about the difference between a live pitch and a pitch that, like, Will, you said 10% you'll get right to the pitch and pitch it live. I have never once in my life ever gotten to a live pitch without them seeing some version of a pitch first.
What I meant is out of 100 people who we send the email to,
gotcha.
Like 10% might take our meeting, right? And again, I use that to be a little bit polarizing. People say, hold on, if I send to 100 people, hopefully your number's better. My point was that it's never as many people as you know.
Right on. Okay, so any last comments on this solution? Just statement for everybody to know.
I want to comment on the fact that this deck, and I want people to understand this deck is an A deck. If we're going A, B, C, D kind of thing, it's an A deck, meaning the comments we're making might take it from an A minus to an A to an A plus, but it's already in the A category, right? This thing is ready to ship. It's ready to take meetings, and you're already getting phenomenal responses to VCs. When we're trying to prep, when folks are listening to these videos, et cetera, what we want you to understand is our goal is to get you to an A minus. Okay. And a lot of people say, I don't want an A minus. I want an A plus. If you can get to an A minus, that is a massive achievement. And the only way to get to an A plus, this deck or any other deck, is to go pitch it, is to find out what actual investors have to say to get it to an A plus, right? So there's no version where you just get every last thing right, you present it to investors, and no one has an issue. That is absolutely impossible. Same with products.
Let me share what you just brought to mind, Will, and maybe you could comment to this. Sometimes I feel bad unloading on a founder and sending them like 30 points of feedback on a deck. And it's true. Some founders get mad at me because I'll do it in waves, and they're like, you should have just sent it to me right away, everything. But, it kind of evolves. But one of the things, Will, that I take solace in, and I put my head on my pillow and I have a good sleep at night, because giving this type of feedback to founders and pushing them through really makes them learn their startup communication. They get familiar with everything, and they are so much better prepared to talk to investors and all the crazy questions that they're going to be asking you.
Yeah, the other side I want to add to that, Ed, is these two slides, the problem and solution, often take 80% of the time it takes to build a pitch deck. And what sucks about that is whenever I sit in front of a founder and I start giving them feedback, and they're like, oh my God, you've made this so complicated. Like, this is so hard to write this sentence. And I always say the same thing, which is it's supposed to be. Like, you're taking your entire vision and narrowing it down to one sentence. That's not easy. And it forces you to think so critically. Once we get past these two slides, we fly through the rest of the deck. My problem is, same with you, Ed, We always start with these slides, so the very initial stages of working with us feel like you're in molasses. What you you don't get to see after that is the quick part. I almost want to do the deck backward. You can't. We do the deck backwards. You can get all these wins, then like, okay, now we got to come to this. It's a slog to get past these two slides.
Okay, you heard it from us. Let's look at the market slide here. Okay, and once again, this word, the market, should be smaller. But here's our summary sense up at the top. We'd like to see this bigger and stretch right across. Our market includes 180,000 online retailers. So I'm right in that we need to talk about online retailers selling whole products. We're initially focused on the top 500 Shopify retailers. So I'm going to highlight that. In this category, selling mountable items lacking integrated installation. And then we got our TAM, SAM, SOM. And there's the calculation, 11.7 billion, 8.2 billion, and then 150 million.
Here's what I like about it. I like that you said we're going after Shopify retailers. I can picture that, right? Like I can picture an ecosystem. I can picture you sitting down with your biz dev team and saying, this is the phone book to call through. However, I don't understand why we're going after Shopify retailers first. That's actually what's most important. It's not that this is who we're going after. It's the why. And the why has to focus on, why are these the lowest hanging fruit? Of all the people we go after, who's the lowest hanging fruit? Because if these people don't buy, then the rest of the people don't matter. Ed, what do you think?
Bang on. It is right there. Because I know for a fact that's what they're building for. So investor needs to know that it's just one click with Shopify, because that's what we built for. And that's the first beachhead. And then we're going to expand to everything else. That would have been a slam dunk on this, Will.
I would have said that. I would have said easiest installation, very well-defined community of who to call on. Like when we go to just all of online retail, that's from anywhere from like Best Buy to you name it. It's like, holy shit, the sales cycles for those companies are massive, right? And even if you can sell into those companies, they agree that they want to work with you, the implementation cycles of those companies are massive. So part of maybe what I'm saying in ISOM, my initial market, is we need to go after the people that can one-click install this thing. It's a script that runs inside your Shopify store. You're up and running in 5 minutes, that type of thing.
And Will, I'm going to just kind of break my usual MO. You know, I'm a TAM Samsung guy. I like TAM Samsung, right? But in this case, this is the one slide we could have just not had the TAM Samsung. The two don't connect. I don't see any logic between TAM Samsung and that summary sentence up there. So literally, if you scratch that, and so tell me what you think, Will. And all I did up here was explain, because it's one click, we're building for it, representing even those 500, alone, a $300 million opportunity. I would have been fine with this without the TAM Samsung.
My preference here is that I've got the SOM, which I call our initial market, on the left. It shows here's who we're going after, 150 million, which is awesome. And here's 2 bullet points as to why. And then the TAM says this is all retailers. I need to know whether it's US or global. And here are a couple bullet points which tend to define what that represents. In other words, it may represent retail over, $1 billion in sales. Just some texture as to why those people are notably different, Ed, than the archetype of the Shopify people.
And that's where TAM Samsung is dangerous, because it's the reason why I like it, because it requires founders to do their math. But if you don't actually explain how you got to your conclusions, everyone, let's pause for a moment, Will, and I'm sure you can totally reaffirm what I'm saying. Everyone, the reason Will says, I want to see it in as less words as possible, not only does brevity mean that you're put together, Einstein said, if you can't simplify, you don't understand it enough. There are so many reasons it requires it. But the more that you say, everyone, the stronger the chance that you have of saying something that the investor questions, doesn't understand, doesn't like, has a contrary opinion to. You don't want to put yourself in that situation at this stage of the game.
Well, Ed, but folks are intuitively thinking the opposite. Folks are intuitively thinking, if I don't provide a voluminous amount of information, then investors are going to have questions that I haven't already provided the answers to, and I'm going to look like I'm not prepared. It's important to understand that the goal here isn't to be comprehensive at all. The goal here is to say this is the least you need to know in order to get the concept and start asking questions. However, if there is a question that every single investor keeps asking, probably dial it into the deck, right? But what you'll get, and Ed, I'm curious your thought here, is you'll have 10 different investors with 10 different questions, right? Like, because everybody has a different thing. Like some investors say, I really care about customer acquisition. Others care about financials the most. Like every investor kind of has their thing, right? Their shtick. So when I hear one investor go crazy about, well, what's your supply chain going to be? Like if this is, DTC or CPG, I'd be like, okay, well, that might just be their concern. And I may never get that again. Like one investor doesn't represent all the others, but you get the idea.
Yeah, totally. And this is the reason precisely to what you're saying, Will. I tell founders, if you're researching an investor and you find out that they want a pitch deck with these specific slides, for example, we have a relationship with A16Z, okay?
Right.
This is Andreessen Horowitz, and they say when you send us a founder, we love to see founders, and we have that relationship. They're very specific on what they want in the pitch deck, and I will tell the founder for sure. But in this case, well, we have put in a lot of hours, work, research in finding the general basics to get down there so that the investor then contacts you, and then starts asking you questions about your go-to-market strategy and all the things that they care about. And so we want to even the playing field for everybody to have an equal chance to go get a meeting.
Questions are great. No questions is what you want to be concerned about. No questions mean I don't care.
Right. If an investor says, I don't get it, then you're never going to get those questions anyway, everyone.
Yeah. Okay, let's keep going.
How it works. So Urban Mount lets retailers offer professional installation at checkout through our API or simple plug-and-play integrations. So then you got the steps. We got 1, 2, 3, 4. Embedded at checkout, customer ads. We handle revenue captured. And then you got some description under that.
And did we say the same thing 3 times?
Urban Mount lets retailers. Yeah, we infer it even more.
And I appreciate the summary. This feels a little bit dense. Again, we're talking about an A deck. So when we're making these comments, like these are tiny critiques, like big swinging issues. Here's what I would say. I think that this thing does require a bit more detail about the how it works, Ed. Sure. Because I think if we took out the narrative below, and I hate extra words, but if we took out the narrative and we just said Urban Mount embedded at checkout, that could mean a lot of things. Customer ads, installation to cart, I don't think that can mean a lot of things. That seems pretty straightforward. We handle fulfillment. Now we're talking about matching requests to a network of insured pros. Didn't know that there was a network of insured pros. This is the first time we're introducing that, which is fine. But I'm saying that's why that additional information is beneficial. And then revenue capture and the customer service issues are elevated. I like it. I'm there. What do you think?
I'm going to go take a page out of your book, Will, and I'm going to say, yes. So even if you look at embedded at checkout and then installation directly on their product or checkout page, you got redundancies. So there's a way, and it's simple. Just go to ChatGPT and do it. And ChatGPT now will even draw the picture for you, and put the boxes in there. It's just such a great service now. I like how we're summarizing it here, right? It's kind of like you're just kind of throwing up and saying, oh, but I've got every base covered. And there's a way that using visuals, just even, simple numbers and everything, putting that and then having some boxes and then combining these and making it a lot more streamlined, I think would drastically improve this slide. The information is there, Will. I like the information. It's just could be improved in the way it's presented.
I tell you what I do every single time. I don't even take chances anymore. Every single time I write copy, I put it in ChatGPT and I say this in half the words. And I do this now almost the equivalent of spell check, density check. And every single time ChatGPT spits something back to me, I always use that as just a bit of a reference where I say, okay, cool. I could have dropped those words or I could have condensed, that verbiage. I think it's powerful. And again, I use it all the time everywhere, even though I'm used to writing copy.
Let me pause, Will, and just say, you highlighted before the importance of problem, solution, and market. Those are kind of the big 3 slides that you start with. Yeah. I don't know about you, Will, but when I was vetting founders and I was associate analyst, and then general partner, if the first 3 slides, problem, solution, market, were bang on, I kind of loosened up on the other slides. I was less critical.
As opposed to, if they weren't, which they usually aren't, to be fair, then you don't even want to watch the rest of the movie because you have no idea what the plot is.
Yeah. And it'll make me crankier. If you got me off on the wrong foot.
And is it possible to make you crankier?
Actually, it is my default. But this brings up a good point as well, Will. When an investor is looking and they literally look through 25 decks a week, you're naturally going to be cranky.
Yeah, no, I know. But also you're in the business, not you, but I'm saying on the investor side, you are in the business of being critical. That's your job, is to be critical of things. So everything just feels like, it's inviting criticism. So when someone presents something, we're like, whoa, that muscle that I'm used to flexing, which is criticism, I'm having a hard time doing it. Feels good.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
It's kind of like a break. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, business model. We unlock revenue for our partners. Urban Mount collects 25-30% platform fee after service is completed. The retailer keeps a cut and provider gets paid. And then we got this more like a how it works step by step once again, but it does break down the numbers.
Yeah, you can say this is how the revenue model works. To me, this is very specific to the business model. I think this is super appropriate. I like the idea that it's showing $15 collected here, $45 collected here, $90 collected here. However, there's some part of me that questions whether the retailer is as excited about taking 10 to 15% off of what's essentially a pretty big retail charge versus the rest. I know that this founder has talked to retailers and has done this homework, so I'm not pretending to be a subject matter expert on this. I'm just saying, as someone who's tangentially associated here, and I did run a business that was similar to this for checkout, my first thought was, I kind of want it to be a little bit juicier for that retailer. Ed, what do you think?
I'm going to riff off of exactly what you said and set it up for all the founders. Will talked about talking to retailers, which is battle testing your assumptions, and you need to do that. What Will just demonstrated is what investors will do. They'll say, is that really going to be enticing enough? Because naturally, investors have to do that. If you can say that, oh yeah, valid concern, we check with retailers, and 9 out of 10 that we talked to agreed, or everybody already signed on, they thought it was great, or even they suggested that would be the split they're okay with because we're adding the revenue, then that's great. You've got that covered. But if you go in and you're like, I don't know, and you get caught and you can't have an answer for that, then Will's very question will reveal you, and that's going to be marks against you.
Yeah, and again, just because that's a potential objection, that doesn't mean to litter this slide with more content, right? This was me just thinking, whenever I get to revenue model or how it works, right? What I always think about is, will this thing sell like hotcakes to whoever our total addressable market is, which in this case are retailers. And so I look for, why is the value proposition of this thing so damn juicy that they're going to jump out of their skin just to get this product on their table, so to speak. For $15, I'm like, I don't know if people get that excited about $15. And again, I understand that's on volume, et cetera, but you're also going after Shopify retailers. Maybe what I would have considered, and I'm not pretending to know their business model. This is just, Ed, I get excited about founder stuff. So I'm just talking like a founder and thinking about it like it was my business, which I like to do. I might have looked at something that said retailer gets the first $30 no matter what, and then we split the rest.
Yeah,
like $30 plus something, like there's a hard-coded spiff that they get.
There's so many ways that you could cut it. Everyone, what Will just talked about, for those of you listening or be watching this is why we have a business model slide, because there's so many ways that you can couch it and make money, but it makes a difference. Think about video games. We went from, okay, you pay $70 for a game, and then it's free, and you pay microtransactions, and then it's nobody likes microtransactions. Now you pay $70 for a game, or in the case of Nintendo, you're paying $120 per game because they jacked up the prices. But it makes a difference. Investors care, and they want to have that discussion with you.
I'm sure there's a really good reason those numbers are those numbers. I don't pretend to know it. All I'm saying is, on that slide, forget the $15 for a second. On that slide, what I want to key off of is the juice worth the squeeze for the customer, being the retailer in this case, to buy this product, to buy the checkout. You could have a very logical argument that could say, look, based on their average order value, this is actually in how much they make it, an average of 2%. Like if you were to say, hey, look, when Best Buy sells an Xbox for $300, they make on average $9. This is 150% more. And again, obviously you're not installing an Xbox, but like say it's a TV. This is 150% more than they normally make. I might mention that. But the other side of it is, Ed, at $150 as an add-on to a service kind of limits how many products that this would be relevant for, okay?
Right. Yep.
So if I just paid $400 for a TV, as an example, and I'm not trying to straw man the argument, $150 is going to be way beyond what I'm going to spend for install, okay?
Exactly.
Same with furniture, et cetera. You kind of run into this price delta that I need to see that says, for the amount of this product, or said differently, I need a price point above this amount for $150, and I'm not hard coding that as the only install price, but I understand the economics here. What do you think? You think that there's something about maybe the price point of this product that might be difficult?
You said it exactly. And again, I can't stress this enough. This is perfect, because literally everyone and investors are going to be thinking these things and might start talking about it when you're presenting, or they're thinking it before you get to that presentation. Right? So that's where laying things out. Will is giving this founder the benefit of the doubt and saying, I'm sure there's a great argument for it. It's just, hey, can we present it in a way where you don't have to be there saying, no, hang on, no, et cetera, explaining it. The other feedback I have is, once again, just a bit of redundancy. So for example, we unlock revenue here. We've already said we unlock revenue, right? This sentence is pretty good at the top. And again, I bet you could say all this in literally half the words, or even less, and just show with some boxes. So all the raw materials, they're honing it down just to sharpen the tip of the arrow, for me, seems to be the general feedback across this entire deck.
But I'll say this, Ed. I understand this slide. And
Yeah.
so it ranks as an A because this isn't necessarily an easy concept to convey. And I think the founder did a great job of doing it fairly quickly. Ed, we got a few minutes left. Can we pick off one more slide?
Absolutely. Let's check this out. And by the way, kudos, courageous founder. Will, the founder told me specifically, I want the feedback. And that's what I love. I love that attitude.
Yeah, and you know what? We say this all the time. Being a great founder is about being good at feedback. It doesn't mean that you just do what you're told. It means you're good at soliciting feedback. To this day, we're years and years and years into our business. Many of you who have been on a call with me where we meet with all of our community leaders and all the people, every time I present a product, I always say, what should I have done differently? Help me shape the product because I'm building it for you. The fact that it works for me doesn't really matter. But that's me. It's a muscle I've developed over time that says what matters is the feedback in how I incorporate it.
Here's the infrastructure slide. We built the full stack foundation, user, mobile, and web apps, pro apps, partner dashboards, and internal tools, all operational and ready to scale with lots of screenshots.
Yeah. Why do you think this is here?
I was just going to...
Is it progress?
I see what this is about, Will. Okay. I'm just going to be point blank. This could easily be put in the traction slide.
That was my first thought.
That's where you put the state of the product right there. So
Yeah.
this slide and the next slide, let's take a look at this next slide. Let's do a two
Okay.
for one.
Yeah.
In just 2 months since public launch, we've organically signed 250 contractors, partnered with 50 apartment complexes, built up fulfillment stack plus retailer API. All right. So I would say, Will, and tell me what you think. You could say literally in 2 months, we built the full stack and now we've got all this traction and that would be super impressive.
Yeah, I love 250 contractors, although that doesn't seem like the challenge I'm concerned with. Although, again, I appreciate that traction. Partnered with 50 apartment complexes. Ed, up until this point, have you made any mention whatsoever that we're talking to apartment complexes?
No, but I assume those are the ones that want the installation done, right?
Okay, so maybe I'll call them resellers.
Interesting. Yeah.
Okay, just to bucket them. I'm not trying to be deceptive, but when we introduce apartment complexes as a concept that we haven't talked about up till now, we've said online retailer, Shopify, et cetera. You're assuming the audience, know what the context of apartment complexes has to do with that. And again, this is one of those things where, as a founder, you know exactly what that means, but you forgot to tell the audience.
And that's where, let's get back to telling the audience. You can tell the audience in less slides. I don't think we need this slide unless there's a good argument. You can combine it here. The other thing, Will, this is my last piece of feedback. Once again, I don't need to see all of this. Everyone, I understand. If you want to get that, you can communicate that in so many other ways. This has a potential to be so powerful. And if you want to show traction, get some type of week over week growth thing going on or month over month growth. That's the stuff that gets investors excited. I personally would never sit and go through each one of these bubbles, Will.
The timeline's irrelevant. The timeline only matters if there's something very meaningful about the sequential progress, right? So for example, if you had a product going through FDA approval, there is a very specific sequencing that you're showing about where you are in that process. In this case, I just need you to fast forward to the end. I need you to say, we have a working prototype, we have 250 service providers signed up, and we have over 50 resellers in queue representing $25 million a year worth of business.
That's great.
Whenever I say we have customers, right, lined up, in this case, retailers, I always represent how much business, how much money those people represent. I never just stop and say, we have 3 Fortune 500 customers with an LOI. I say we have 3 Fortune 500 customers who collectively will spend $20 million next year.
Let's wrap this up, Will. I really appreciate this founder. This founder has been so impressive in terms of how thoughtful they are, the questions. And so I'm going to say, well, yes, absolutely. I'm in an A-. That's my final score on this one because all the raw materials are there. This is a great startup. I know other startups that have raised significant amounts of money using the same thing of adding something at checkout. I believe it's a problem. I believe it unicorns really well. It's just now refining it and just sharpening, again, that tip of that arrow in using all the techniques that we talk about to make this pitch deck into that A, but we're already getting great investor feedback. And to me, that's what we're all about.
I've raised venture money with C+ pitch decks, okay?
Yeah.
Here's why. And again, I want people to understand the pitch deck is a tool, but it's just a tool to help you tell your story, okay? Now, part of it is like, again, it tells the story in many cases before you get to, because you have to email it to the investor and they have to read it without you. So all the detail we get into has a lot more to do with how will this hold up when you're not there to fill in those gaps, okay? Now, there are some presenters, right? I'm thinking like the Steve Jobs level that they can have. Steve Jobs can do something where he just shows a single word on a screen and it helps that he's Steve Jobs or was Steve Jobs and can explain iPhone, right? Now, most of us can't or won't be able to do that, and that's fine. But understand what you can get away with in the live pitch has nothing to do with how well the deck holds up by itself. So, but if the deck is good, it's solid, it's polished, it will help get you those meetings where a lot of times you never know about the meetings you didn't get because your deck was dog shit and you never got a chance to present it.
Right. And I say how a founder does anything is how they'll do everything. So if you care about the pitch deck, that's going to spill over. That's what investors start to look for. Will, this has been a lot of fun. Well, these pitch decks just keep getting better and better. We're more fun every single time.
We're doing our job. One thing I want to say to folks that are in a live audience now, to folks that might be listening to it in the future, and to the founder who is kind and generous enough to pay this forward. What we're trying to do here with all these videos, hell, with the Startups.com platform, everything that we do, is we're trying to pay it forward. We're trying to help out founders who are going through the same crap that we went through and not have to have the same headaches. What I would ask folks that are listening to this forward, use this to help another founder. We are in the business of helping other founders. It has nothing to do with what our product is. This is by no means a product pitch. This has to do with being a founder. As a founder, our job, among many things, is to go help other founders. It's to take this. I'm hoping that founder that built this deck will then take it and talk to another founder that they know that's building their deck and say, hey, let me save you a little bit of time. Or I hope another founder that's listening to one of these videos calls one of their buddies and says, aren't you pitching something like in the same ballpark? You really need to take this to heart and make this change. Ed and I are just two people. We can only affect so many other founders, but if we can enable lots and lots and lots of other founders to start helping other founders, we kind of get to help everybody. So share what we're talking about, share it in your own words or use ours, but get it out there, pay it forward. That's what this is all about.
I could have said it better myself. That's the perfect way to end it. Everyone, we're going to be back every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. You know the schedule. Check us out, Startups.com. Do the YouTube thing, like, comment, subscribe. We want to hear from you. Will, always a pleasure. I'll see you next week.
All right, bud. See you.